Hello there and welcome to this tutorial. I am going to be creating the impressionistic landscape springtime with a couple of fun techniques. And this really is a quick painting, more or less, and it has a couple different techniques combined in it. So I'm going to go through what I'm going to work with. Obviously my titanium white, always have that around. I'm using a very light yellow. This is just a lemony yellow color. That's a cadmium yellow. I'm using a light blue. I'm using a cerulean blue. And I'm using a light green, like just a spring green. So you can mix your own colors. You can use, exactly what I'm using. Palette, we're going to use a palette knife for this, and we're going to use some flat brushes, some water. Always have some paper towel around, and that's our tool base. So the first thing is I've got a 16 by 20 canvas prepped with titanium white, fully dry. With these thinner canvases, this is a thinner, not a gallery wrap. I have secured it to the table with a little bit of painter's tape, just doubled up under the corner there and down here, so it doesn't move and bounce around a lot, because it will kind of bounce around as we work on it. So that's just a tip if you haven't done that. So with this painting, what I do is I'm going to work half and half. We're going to do this as the effect of the sky, essentially, and this will be the ground. So I'm going to work in the section closest to me. I'm applying some water with the mister. I know this canvas is super dry. I did it weeks ago, so it's ultimately dry. If you just primed yesterday and dried overnight, don't spray your canvas. Take some water on a brush and wipe your water on versus spraying. Spraying a canvas that hasn't fully cured might leave little holes in your paint. And if you've taken my tutorials, you've heard me say that many times, but I always want people to be very careful with that. So I'm just putting a very light bit of water on here, just to moving it around so it doesn't pool, just to put a little movement in my paint. I don't want a ton of water. So I'm going to go ahead and put some cerulean down and pop it down in just a few spots, like that. And then I'm going to take some of my light blue, put that right next to some of the blue, and then a couple spots of it by itself. Tiny bit of my green. I'm going to move that up here just a little more, a little bit right there. And that's it for now. Now I'm going to take my flat brush that's got a little bit of water on it, and I'm going to start down here at the bottom. Oh, I forgot my white. Always got to have your white. So I'm going to put some titanium white down. If you don't use any white, your colors can get very muddy. If you don't want a lot of white in your painting, you can add a little less, but I always suggest having a little bit just for that lightness. And starting with your white, moving into your paint. Now, this is a little bit of paint that I put down. I probably will be putting down more, but I wanted to show you the technique of this, and bringing that white into the paint adds that entirely different dimension. So I'm just using sort of what I call sort of a little expressive crosshatch pattern, where I'm just moving my brush up and down, back and forth. And I definitely am going to be adding more white, because I want this to have a lightness, a springy feel to it. If you want a heavier, deeper painting, of course you do what you need to do. But this is going to have quite a bit of white, And I can always add my blue. So I'm working up in sections. If you want to, you don't have to lay all your paint down. You can work in sections, especially if you're working large. Do not lay all your paint down. If this were a large 30 by 30, 30 by 40 or larger, I would work section. I would add more paint, work section. I would add more paint, work section. You can still come back and work in other sections, especially if you use a retarder, which slows your drying time. And I would definitely do that if I was working large with this type of painting. So I am not even getting into the green yet. I'm sticking into the blues. I'm working quickly, moving my brush strokes around, adding depth here and there, picking up white. I can bring a little white over there, bring it in here. Move back and forth, up and down, quickly. If any spot has like just too much up and down, come back over it, add a little swash of your brush. If it's too light, grab a little of the dark. So you're using this paint essentially as a palette. You can put your paint right on a palette, say such as this, and then work off of it. I just find that this works best for me, and I like having the paint right on the canvas to grab. So if it starts to get a little muddy, you grab a little white. If it starts to get a little too bright, and you add a little of your depth and move that in there. And this is, as you can see, a fairly quick technique when you're working on a smaller canvas. It's very, I enjoy it because it makes me feel like I'm really painting. And it's really pretty because it does leave bits of impasto paint. It's got some movement. It's got a blend of all kinds of colors. And if you choose your colors well, you're going to get a very pretty finished effect. If you use too many colors, and this is one thing, I add a little more white to my canvas. This is one thing that I do see often. Add a little light blue too, or a cerulean blue, sorry, just to have it on my palette. One thing I do see often is people will choose too many colors, and all of a sudden it's just muddy. So you could get away with doing 2 or 3 colors on a canvas, and if you use white, you use a little black or shading gray, you've created a multitude of tones, but you really only used a few colors. All right, so I like more or less what's going on here. Add a little white here, pick it up there, and just kind of eyeball your canvas and decide this is one thing I will tell you with this. You'll get little spots because you'll move around and then all of a sudden you'll see these little blank spots that didn't get any paint on them. So you do have to come back and really take a good look because you're moving so quickly around. You're not painting, you know, swiping back and forth like that. That there are little spots that will get missed. And even if this dries, you can come back with a little bit of this color on a brush and just hit those spots a little bit. So that's not really an issue. So I've got that more or less where I like it. You want the same amount of movement everywhere, but you don't want it to be identical. Okay, so I like that pretty much where it is. I'm going to add a little more white right here. We're going to introduce our green as we're moving through this now. It's a very minty kind of springy green. You could use sort of a yellow green here too, would be real pretty. I'm going to move that just across, and then I'm going to introduce it into some of the other areas of my canvas a little more. And if you're not sure of a color, add just a little drop like to a side here. Mix it a little, and if you think, oh no, that's not going to work, you just come back over it with some white or another color, and you don't have to worry about it. If you're not sure of a color, don't put it everywhere until you know that you want it in your painting. All right, so I'm going to bring a little of that right here. right here, just to introduce some of that green down into the bottom. And then come up here with a little blue on my brush that I've picked up and introduce the blue to the green. So you can see this is a pretty quick painting. You know, this is a technique. Obviously, if you're doing a higher end canvas, you're working large, it's not going to be quite so, you know, quick and easy. But if it's just something you're doing on a weekend, or you just want something pretty and quick, you just really want to feel like you painted with a brush, this is a great type of technique for that. Alright, so I'm pretty much liking this. I'm going to let this dry before we come over it with our other colors. I'm doing an accent color with the yellow, and then we're going to work on the top with our palette knife. So it's going to give us a couple different effects in the one painting. And I've got some bits of impasto paint here with the white that I've laid down and a little of the blue, which is really nice as well. So you've got lots and lots of things going on in this artwork, and it creates a kind of a soft, impressionistic looking painting. All right, let this dry and we'll come back and work on it.